What's up, everyone? Welcome back to King Anime Review. And for this video, I will be talking about anime. I'll be doing this anime tier list, and yeah, just doing this anime tier list. So yeah, let's get right into it. So some of these I've watched a lot of these anime on here, but I haven't watched all of them. So for the ones that I haven't watched, I just simply won't rank them. I won't put them on the tier list. But yeah, let's get into it. So Yu Yu Hakusho, I watched it. I binge watched the entire anime start to finish, and based on what I remember, it was a pretty good show. I watched, like I said, I binge watched the entire thing start to finish, but I don't remember that much from it because I finished it. I think I finished it like 2 or 3 years ago. So yeah, it's been a while since I actually watched it. But yeah, based on what I remember, pretty good show, pretty decent. Very very overrated. People, it's very overrated. Some people think it. Some people actually claim this is better than Naruto, which is absolutely ridiculous and very wrong. But yeah, it's a pretty decent series. Pretty good actually. I'll say it's pretty good. Yeah. The villains in there wasn't. I don't like the villains. I'm just gonna go into a little bit of detail. I don't want to waste too much time on one anime. But the villains, from what I remember, I didn't like them. Toguro, he was decent, and Shinsui, the one who had like multiple different, like personalities or whatever. Um, I think he was pretty bad. Honestly, I think he was a pretty bad villain. Shinobu Sensui or whatever. Yeah, he was pretty bad to me. And then the final villain of the series was pretty bad as well. He was just very forgettable. Um, yeah, it was a decent series overall though. Had some good fights. Um, had some decent storylines, decent character development. Hiei was pretty good. Kuwabara was pretty good. I mean, all the main cast was pretty good in general. But yeah, decent series. Next up, One Piece. This is a series now. By the way, every series on this list has flaws. There's no such thing as a perfect series. Everything has flaws. There's no such thing as perfection in fiction. There's always going to be flaws. But in One Piece's case, I think the pros outweigh. I mean, I think the pros balance out with the cons. I think it's pretty evenly balanced. I think there's the good stuff out. I mean, the good stuff and the bad stuff balance each other out in One Piece. Whereas, so that's why I'm putting it in C tier because C is like average, like a average, mediocre, barely passable type of thing. So yeah, so One Piece is like you know mediocre, like average, not a good show, not a terrible show, but like kind of right in the middle. Um, very repetitive. Like the majority of the stuff in the series is just the Straw Hats going to islands, and basically they go to the island. I mean, the arc. I mean, the series follow the same arc structure for the most part. Like 90% of the series is just the Straw Hats. They go to an island, they meet some new friends, they find out the island is being controlled by a villain, and then they beat the villain. Then they have a party, and then they leave the island and they go do the same thing on the other island, on another island. They travel to another island and do the same thing. So it's basically rinse and repeat with One Piece. It's a very repetitive story structure. Like I said, that's basically 90% of the series. And I've watched up until post time skip. I watched up until the Fishman Island arc. After the Fishman Island arc, I pretty much dropped the series. But yeah, I basically binge watched about 500 episodes of it. Um, and yeah, it was pretty much like 90% of the story was just them doing that thing. And it's only a couple of exceptions to that as far as pre-time skip stuff. And the only arcs that didn't follow that same repetitive structure from what I remember was Impel Down, Marine Ford, and Amazon Lily. Amazon Lily was pretty decent. Impel Down was one of the worst arcs I ever seen, and Marine Ford was pretty bad as well. So yeah, even the arcs that don't follow that same repetitive story structure aren't good arcs at all to me. Um, I can go into a lot of detail about that, but I really don't want to right now. And also Luffy, he's a pretty bad main character. Like he's pretty much people throw around the word ripoff a lot, but if you want to call any character a ripoff of somebody, Luffy should be the primary example. He's a complete ripoff of Goku. There's only a couple differences between Luffy and Goku. The differences is they have a different goal, which I don't even consider that a difference because they both have a goal. Obviously, they're in two separate series, so they're not going to have the same goal. Obviously, there's not a Pirate King in Dragon Ball and stuff like that. But so yeah, they both are goal oriented. Like Goku, he wants to be stronger. He wants to get. I mean, Goku wants to get stronger. And he wants to fight strong characters. That's pretty much his goal. Luffy's goal is to find out One Piece and become the Pirate King. So they both have goals. They're both very determined to achieve their goals. They both eat a lot of food. They're both dumb, or shall I say, they're both not intelligent. I'll just say that. And they both go into fights without thinking. They both started off the series pretty strong. Like at the start of the series, they were pretty strong already. They're not underdogs. Unlike, for example, people say Naruto is a Goku ripoff, which he's nowhere near. Naruto has it's tons of differences between Naruto's character and Goku's character. But one example is Naruto when he started off the series, he was an underdog, whereas Luffy and Goku they started off their series like in the first episode, they were strong automatically. They was automatically beating people up and stuff, and they started off, pretty strong, and they weren't underdog characters. Um, and also Naruto has, it's a. I'm not even gonna go into point being Luffy. I already listed the similarities. I mean, basically, he basically everything about Luffy. He basically have. It's only a couple differences between him and Goku, and that difference is well, actually, no, it's really one difference because I don't count their goals as a difference since they both have goals. It's just a different goal. But the other difference, I mean, basically the only difference between them is Luffy doesn't have internal monologue, which is crucial for a main character to have, which means Luffy and basically character. The word character itself means you can actually look up the definition of character and it will say basically the mental and moral traits distinctive to an individual. So mental and moral that comes from your mind. That comes from your mind. And since we never see Luffy think throughout the series, you can't say his character changed because the character comes from you internally, your mind, your morals, your mental and moral state. That comes from your mind. Since Luffy doesn't have any internal monologue that we see throughout the series, you can't actually say that he has character development. But yeah, so One Piece, Luffy has terrible character. I mean, he has no character development, and then the story is very repetitive. But the pros is the fact that it has fantastic world building and very, very unique world building and exploration and stuff like that. And the adventure aspect of it is cool as well. And it has some unique qualities. But yeah, yeah, it's balanced out. The pros balance out the cons for One Piece. Now, Full Metal Alchemist, I watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, so I only watched a couple episodes of the original Full Metal Alchemist, but yeah, I watched Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, so I'm not gonna put the original Full Metal Alchemist on the list. Next up, Death Note, fantastic series. Some people say it went downhill after the midway point. I'm not gonna spoil what happened, but yeah, some people say it went downhill. But overall, I like the entire series. I binge watched it start to finish. Fantastic series. I watched every episode. I like the ending of it. Like again, yeah, I just like everything about the series. I mean, this series really doesn't have any bad characters at all. It has good character development, a lot of strategy, a lot of just cool stuff going on in this series, and a very interesting concept. A lot of strategy. I mean, just fantastic. I mean, what more can I say? A fantastic series. Very interesting, cool. Just fantastic overall. Hitman Reborn. I didn't watch. I only watched. I think I only watched like one episode of it, and it didn't look interesting to me, so I didn't really get into it. Code Geass. Fantastic series. Uh, it's actually Death Note is in my top five. Code Geass is in my top 10, but it's not in my top five. Um, it's similar. It has some similarities to Death Note, but the thing that Code Geass has that drags it below Death Note for me. And by the way, I watched the entire series, seasons 1 and 2. Binge watched the whole thing on Netflix. Now, the problem with Code Geass is it has a very, very like the deuterogonist of the series. Suzaku is a very, very, very poorly written character. Suzaku is literally one of the worst characters in all of anime. Terrible, terrible character. Suzaku is just terrible. And also Lelouch's sister, the one who passed away, who was a princess, she was poorly written as well. So Code Geass has some bad written Code Geass has some poorly written characters, whereas Death Note, no character in Death Note is poorly written. I don't think there's any character that you can say is just a bad character in Death Note. You have some characters that don't do much because they're very insignificant characters. But when it comes to the significant characters, they're all they fill their roles pretty well and they're decently written. Code Geass, you have some characters that are absolutely terribly written. So yeah, Code Geass has some bad characters, but other than that, it's fantastic stuff, fantastic strategy going on, great character development, etc. Great series. Um, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. A tier. It's a very overrated series. It's nowhere near as amazing as a lot of people claim it is, but it was a pretty solid series overall. The main thing that drags it down is the villains. The villains in this series was terrible. I mean, in particular, the final villain was terrible. He was a one-dimensional villain, had no logical explanation for why he turned evil or whatever, and he was a very, very poorly written villain. Um, I think from what I remember, it was like two. It was like five. Like, well, actually, I'm not gonna spoil it, but yeah, villains in this series was pretty bad and pretty annoying. It's only yeah, just overall bad villains. But other than that, the series was pretty good. Um, and also I forgot to mention. I mean, I don't know if I mentioned this, but Yu Yu Hakusho. Uh, I didn't like Shinobu Sensui, and I didn't like the final villain of that series either. So yeah, uh, uh, Tagore was pretty decent, but other than that, Yu Yu Hakusho don't really have good villains. But yeah, that's how I feel about that. Pokemon, I only watched a couple episodes of it. I probably watched a little bit of it when I was a kid, but yeah, I only watched a couple episodes of it. It was decent. Well, actually, yeah, I just haven't watched that much of it, but where I remember, it was pretty boring. From what I remember. So yeah. And then we have Attack on Titan, one of the greatest anime of all time. Technically, I'll say it's the second greatest anime of all time. Literally one of the goats of anime. Top tier stuff. Great character development, great concept, great execution of a very unique concept and idea and premise, and it was all executed pretty well, amazingly executed actually. Um, Next up, One Punch Man. I think I watched about half of this season, the first season of it. So I think I watched about 6 episodes of this. A long time ago, I watched about 6 episodes of it on Netflix, and it was pretty boring. The main character just literally one shots every villain. Basically has no character development in the series from what I've seen. Main character just walk around one shot in every villain. Pretty boring series. Um, yeah, I mean, I think it has some decent. I've seen some decent fights of it. But other than that, just very terrible. Just bad series overall. Gintama, Gintama, I watched about a couple episodes of this. Yeah, I probably shouldn't put it on a tier list because I haven't watched that much of it. But I don't like this anime at all. I know it's a parody anime, so it's supposed to be making fun of stuff or whatever. It's supposed to be comedy. But it actually disrespected Naruto in one of the episodes. Uh, uh, Gintoki, he actually crumbled up a poster of Naruto and threw it out his window in one of the episodes. Very, very disrespectful. And overall, the series is just, uh, I don't think it's funny from what I've seen of it. And it's just not a good series overall. Yeah, I'll put it in F tier, honestly. Um, as a matter of fact, I might as well rate the rest of these. Some of these series are just so boring that they're not even worth getting into. Like if you watch the first episode of it, uh, I don't know. If I only watch one episode of it, I'm probably not gonna put it on the list. Gintama, yeah, just to be fair, I won't put it on the list, but yeah, I think it's F tier. Uh, there's a reason why I only watched one episode. Let's keep it like that. It was nothing, yeah, nothing intriguing about it when I tried to get into it. Now, next up, Sword Art. Oh yeah, and this another anime right here. This anime I haven't watched either. I don't even know what it is. Don't care about it. Anyway, Sword Art Online. I think I watched about maybe about 10 episodes of this, 10 to 12 episodes, something like that. I haven't watched it in a long time. I stopped watching it maybe about a year or two ago. From what I remember, it had a nice start to it. It's one of those animes that had a nice start, but then started going downhill. It had a nice premise. Like, for example, I'm gonna give you an example with One Piece. uh One Piece, it has a nice premise. It's a cool idea, like traveling around the world to find a treasure to get to your goal, and doing so, and putting together a crew along the way and making friendships along the way. But traveling around the world to get to one point to get to your goal. Now, on paper, that sounds like a very very cool premise, a very very cool idea. But is it executed? Is it executed properly? No, because it's very very repetitive. 90% of the series is following the same story structure, and on top of that, the main character has no character development. So that's why I say One Piece has a very, very, very cool premise. But since it has basically like Luffy has no character development and is very, very repetitive. I mean, it does have a couple other problems. Like for example, Luffy getting random power ups that was never even foreshadowed, like Gear Second. Uh, People throw around the term ass pull a lot. If anything is the ass pull, is Luffy getting Luffy's power ups. Um, Literally, Gear Second came out of nowhere. Sanji getting that fire on his feet, his fire kicks, that came out of nowhere, had no foreshadowing. Luffy getting Gear Second had no foreshadowing, came out of nowhere. Um, wasn't even mentioned. Luffy didn't even train to get that power, ridiculous. Also Zoro, a lot of the techniques that he get come out of nowhere. But yeah, Sword Art Online is kind of like One Piece, where it had a nice premise, but it started going downhill. Poor execution of the premise, and just didn't. It wasn't as great as it could have been. And then we go to Haikyuu. I watched about 6 to 10 episodes of Haikyuu. It was pretty decent from where I remember, but uh it was pretty boring. I mean, it was kind of. I'll say it's barely passable. Like it's like it's one of those things that you can watch. It's not gonna, it's barely passable, but it's not something that's gonna. I don't think it's very interesting at all. I mean, it's about volleyball. It's, that's kind of a boring, premise in general. I mean, well, it could work. I mean, sports series could work depending on how the characters develop and stuff like that. But based on like the first 6 to 10 episodes, I didn't really see much, I didn't see anything that intriguing. I think it did. I think it did have some, some decent stuff in there though. But yeah, I'll say it's probably. Yeah, I'll put it in a D tier. I'll say it's barely passable. Um, so this series I haven't watched. That series I haven't watched. Now moving on next to My Hero Academia. Fantastic series. Very, very great series. I'll put it in. Yeah, I'll put it in the S tier. Fantastic series. Dragon Ball Super. Um, D tier. It's barely passable. Um, the Broly movie was pretty good. Resurrection F, the Frieza stuff was unnecessary. Frieza should never came back in the first place. But overall, that was decent. Uh, the Beerus movie, that was decent. Um, but besides the movies, the story arcs, for example, like the Universe 6 tournament, that was decent. It was pretty decent, yeah. I actually say that's probably one of the better things in Super. Um, the Goku Black arc, it started off pretty decent, but and then it went downhill pretty fast. It's just a lot of, bad writing and stuff in that arc. Um, Tournament Power arc was decent. Um, so yeah, overall, I'll say it's barely passable. I'll put it above Haikyuu. It's definitely more entertaining than Haikyuu. But yeah, next up, The Promised Neverland. I watched the first season of it, and it was pretty good from the first season. Yeah. I'll put it in the hmm. I'll put it in the B tier. And I think, well, actually, no, I think it's, yeah, A tier. The first season was good. But I mean, the series hasn't concluded. Well, the manga is finished, but the anime hasn't concluded. So since I only seen one season of it, I'll put it in the B tier because I don't really know how the series ends or anything like that. So yeah. These series, what is this? Sailor Moon? I don't think I ever watched Sailor Moon. I probably only seen like a couple, maybe one episode, maybe I don't know. Cowboy Bebop, I didn't watch that much of that. Probably seen about one episode. I think this series is called Devil May Cry Baby. I only seen like one episode of that or two. From what I remember, it was okay, but I didn't really get into it. Didn't really like it. Naruto Shippuden, GOAT, greatest anime of all time, top tier. Never will be topped ever. No anime will ever top it. Top tier anime, greatest of all time. Fourth Great Ninja War arc is the greatest arc in fiction, top tier. Dragon Ball, the original Dragon Ball, top tier, one of the goats, one of the greatest of all time. Fairy Tail, um, from what I remember, it was I watched about 12 episodes of this, about maybe 12 to 15 episodes, something like that. Um, it had a decent start. Um, I can't. I watched this about a couple years ago, but due to certain things that was going on in my life, I wasn't able to continue binge watching it. But from what I remember, it was pretty decent. It did kind of it started to get boring but it had a decent story to it. But yeah, overall it's kind of decent. I think it's like in the same tier as One Piece and uh Sword Art Online. So yeah, I'll put it in the C tier. Uh, this anime I didn't watch, Black Clover, one of the goats, fantastic. The series hasn't even concluded yet, and it's still already in the GOAT tier. It's a fantastic series, one of the greatest of all time. Seven Deadly Sins. I really gave this anime a chance. Like I gave this anime a huge chance. I tried to watch it so many times. I couldn't really get that interested in it. I couldn't really get that invested in it. It was never really that interesting to me. It was very boring in certain areas. It had a the villains are pretty boring, pretty poorly written as well. Um, it's a couple bright spots to this anime though. One of the bright spots is the adventure aspect, just like One Piece. It has a nice little adventure aspect of it. The fighting and stuff, the power system is pretty decent. Um, the main character is pretty funny, Meliodas. Meliodas. Uh, I mean, he's pretty much a pervert, but he do some funny stuff like taking females' underwear and stuff like that. Pretty. It has some decent comedy. But other than that, it was pretty boring. I think it had a decent premise, but it just wasn't well executed. So yeah, I'll put it in the C. Actually, I'll put it in the D tier. I much rather watch Dragon Ball Super than Seven Deadly Sins, because yeah, it's some Seven Deadly Sins get kind of boring to me, honestly. Uh, actually, now that I think about it, yeah, I'll put Dragon Ball Super. I'd rather watch Dragon Ball Super than the rest of these anime below it. So yeah, like everything in D tier and C tier. Out of the D tier and C tier stuff, I think One Piece and Dragon Ball Super. I'd rather watch those two as opposed to anything else in the C and D tier and the F tier. But yeah, so okay, so Kuroko no Basket, didn't watch that. I think it's called Hajime no Ippo or something like that. I heard of it, but I didn't watch it. Uh, Bleach, top tier anime, one of the goats, top tier. Uh, Soul Society arc is one of the greatest arcs in all of fiction. It's right up there. Like it actually rivals some of the Dragon Ball and Naruto arcs. And yes, it's top tier for sure. Fourth grade Ninja War arc is the greatest arc in fiction, but after that, it's a couple other Naruto arcs like the Pain arc, tuning exams, Five Kage Summit. Those are all like top tier, arcs. But then Soul Society arc, it's kind of up there. Like it's pretty high up there for shonen arcs. Uh, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I want to say about 10 to 12 episodes of this. It started getting really really boring. It had a nice start. I mean, Dio was kind of like ruining Jonathan's life. I think he killed his dog and then like kissed his girlfriend or something like that. But he was like ruining Jonathan's life. Um, and then he turned. I mean, and then he like became a vampire and stuff like that. And after Jonathan started learning Hamo, I think that's when the series went downhill. Honestly, before that it was pretty decent. It still wasn't good, but it has some decent comedy, just decent, like barely passable. Like for example, this will get you like a passing grade in school. Like it'll get you a D, but a D is not a good grade. It's just barely passing. That's how I would describe like the first couple episodes of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It was pretty decent, but then it started going downhill after the whole hormone stuff and when they was fighting underwater and stuff like that. Or yeah, I can't really remember that much of it. But yeah, it started getting really really boring when Jonathan started fighting Dio after Dio became a vampire. It started getting extremely boring, so I just had to drop it. Overall, yeah, I'll put it in F tier. It really went downhill. It really went downhill. Now, Code Geass, I gave this a couple chances, and just like I gave JoJo's Bizarre Adventure a couple chances as well. I watched season three. I watched like the first couple episodes of season. Well, actually, about maybe one episode of season three. But then I went to the first season, and then I couldn't get into it. But then I went back to the first season and gave it a second try, and I still couldn't get into it. I only watched about 12 episodes of it because it just got extremely boring. But Code Geass, I mean, Tokyo Ghoul, I gave like two chances. Well, actually, maybe even three chances. Actually, I kept on trying to go back and rewatch this anime, but I only watched about so far. I think I only watched about 10 to 12 episodes. But it has a very very cool premise, but it's not really well executed. Um, yeah. So far, like season one, I think I watched about 12 episodes of season one. Or wait, is season one 12 episodes or 24? I can't remember. I think I watched about half of the first season. I got to the point where after Kanaki is starting to um basically develop feelings for that one girl, and he's trying to protect her, and he's like trying to fight the fact that he's a ghoul or whatever, or no, he's starting to accept the fact that he's a ghoul or something like that. But this one of the series, actually I think had a pretty good first episode, but then it started. Uh, Actually, no, it had a great. I mean, well, I say good. It had a good first couple episodes. A nice hook, intriguing, interesting, cool premise, but it's just not really. I don't know. It's just not doing enough. It's not maintaining my interest that much, which is why I have to keep on coming back to watch it because it has a good premise, and I think it has a lot of potential to be a great series. But it's just not moving. It's not maintaining my interest. It's not um executing things properly in terms of the way it is. But overall, I will put it like, yeah, I'll put it above yeah, I'll put it in C tier. Um, Rurouni Kenshin. Now, this is one of those anime that I gave a tremendous chance. When I tell you I gave this anime a chance, I gave this anime a chance. A couple chances, actually. I watched about 20 episodes of this anime. Legit. Literally watched about 20 episodes of this anime. People kept on telling me it's one of the greatest anime of all time. Yada, yada, yada. But I literally watched about 20 episodes of this. It's very, very boring. Very, very slow paced. Man, this is up there with One Piece in terms of bad starts. Like you have some anime that have a fantastic start, like for example, Attack on Titan had a fantastic start. Even Demon Slayer had a pretty decent start, even though it started going downhill after like the first couple of episodes it started going downhill. Um, but One Piece and Rurouni Kenshin, those are some of the slowest anime in history when it comes to like pacing and plot progression and and the overall start of the series. And yeah, 20 episodes, and we're still not in. Like you can watch. I think it's like 20. I watched literally 20 episodes of this, and I wasn't interested at all. Like I was forcing myself to watch this anime based on how good I heard it was, but it just wasn't that good. So eventually, I had to drop it. Yeah, this is F tier. Like I never seen an anime that slow paced. Besides One Piece. Um, and the reason I kept watching One Piece is even though it was slow paced, it did have some intriguing aspects of it, and it had a nice premise. But Rurouni Kenshin, not only is it slow paced and boring, just like how the like first 20 or so episodes of One Piece. As far as One Piece go, I think One Piece started to get slightly interesting when Zoro fought Mihawk. That's when One Piece started to get good. It started to get pretty good, I mean pretty decent. It started to get decent when Zoro fought Mihawk. Before the Zoro Mihawk fight, One Piece was below average, pretty bad, very very slow paced, very very boring, and very repetitive. But the Zoro and Mihawk fight, that was about episode 28. That's when it started to get a little bit decent. Rurouni Kenshin, yeah, I watched about 20 episodes of this. It just was boring all the way through. It didn't have a good premise, or it wasn't nothing. Basically the premise of the series, like the main theme of the series or the main plot is just essentially Kenshin is trying to live a peaceful life, and he's not trying to kill people with his sword like he used to do. That's pretty much the plot of the story. And for a plot that for at least One Piece has a interesting premise, even though it's not well executed, but at least has an interesting premise, an interesting concept. But Rurouni Kenshin has not only does it have a pretty boring and bad concept, literally just about a guy not trying to kill people. Not only that, but it also has very very bad pacing and is very very slow and boring at the start of it. Now, next up, the over the most overrated anime of all time, alongside Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. Hunter x Hunter is the most overrated anime of all time. It's nowhere near as amazing as people say it is. However, it is still pretty good. I will put this. I'll put this in B tier. The reason why it's below Yu Yu Hakusho is because, well, in terms of characters, Hunter x Hunter I think has better characters. Uh, and one quick thing about Hunter x Hunter. So I might do a whole video about this, a whole video about Hunter x Hunter in general, and comparing it to other stuff. But yeah, it's very overrated. But Leorio, literally one of the four main characters. I mean, he's supposed to be one of the main characters. This guy is barely in the series. People talk about Sakura. A lot of people like to bash Sakura in the anime community, but at least Sakura is in the series, and she actually does do stuff. Some people say she's useless, which is absolutely wrong. But what's absolute? I mean, it's undeniable that first of all she is useful. I can do a whole separate video about that. But she literally protected Naruto and Sasuke in the force of death, stopped Naruto and Sasuke from dying. She protected Sasuke from Gaara when she got in the way. When Gaara was trying to kill Sasuke, she got in the way, and Gaara basically moved her out of the way. He had to divert his attention to Sakura and move her out the way, which actually saved Sasuke's life. She saved Naruto's life with a kunai when Naruto was falling in the force of death. She protected Naruto Sasuke in the force of death. She, she had a brief little fight with the Sound Ninja. She, there's plenty of things that she did in the series. Like plenty, she did a lot of useful things. She literally helped save the entire Shinobi world in the fourth grade Ninja War arc, etc. But Leorio, this guy, he's barely in the series. That's pretty pathetic. Also, Hunter x Hunter, the villains are not good. Hisoka is Hisoka's not a good. Well, Hisoka is more so an antagonist. He's not necessarily a villain, but he's a very, very, very kind of off-putting. I'll say kind of not cool to watch character. I mean, he's a very like not he's kind of like a disgusting character to watch on screen. I just don't like his character. On top of that, you have Frollo was decent, but he's not a good villain. He's still no logical explanation for why he turned evil, etc. Like he has basically no depth. I mean yeah, Frollo he's not that. I think he's he has potential to be pretty cool, but he's not a good villain. He's a one-dimensional villain. Miriam is also another one-dimensional villain. He's just evil for the sake of being evil. Pretty much his only goal was to kill people. Um, no logical explanation or reason for why he turned evil. I know he popped out of his mother's womb, just automatically the way he was or whatever, but still poorly written villain. Hunter x Hunter just has some bad villains. But on top of that, the reason that is worse than Full Metal Alchemist, which also has pretty bad villains. The reason why it's worse than that is because Hunter x Hunter has a lot of it has a lot of points in the series where characters are literally thinking for like literally about half of the episode where I mean, well, not half. I'm exaggerating, but it's literally portions of the episode where a character is like thinking for like 5 straight minutes or 6 straight minutes, or almost 10 straight minutes or whatever. The character is literally just thinking, and then everybody is moving in slow motion and stuff while the character is thinking about their next move. Very, very slow pacing and very, very boring, especially in the Chimera Ant arc. Man, I mean, that stuff is some of the most boring stuff I've ever seen, where a character is literally just thinking, having a long speech, a very very long speech in their head, and very very long internal monologue. Internal monologue. Now, internal monologue is good and is very very crucial for a character's development. In fact, if you don't have internal monologue, you by default don't have character development. However, seeing the character just move around in slow motion, see everybody moving around in slow motion for like 10 straight minutes while everybody just thinking about their next move, that's very very boring. Um, Also, that video game arc, what was it? I forgot the name of it. That arc was terrible from what I remember. Hunter x Hunter, the York New City arc was, I think that was pretty much the only good arc in that series, but everything else was pretty boring, pretty mediocre and boring. The original Naruto anime, top tier, goat status. Uh, Naruto, the original Naruto and Naruto Shippuden, I basically count it as one anime, but yeah, still fantastic series. It's the best, greatest anime of all time. Dragon Ball Z, top tier, goat tier. Um, yeah, Dragon Ball Z, goat tier. Boruto, Naruto, Next Generations, fantastic, fantastic series. If I was to rate it separately from the original Naruto and Shippuden, it's still gonna be S tier, but I'll probably put it like below Attack on Titan, but it's still S tier. But oh, yeah, I mean, goat tier, I should say. But yeah, I basically include Naruto Part One Shippuden and Boruto is all one story because the story continues into each of these anime. It continues from Naruto to Shippuden into Boruto, so it's all one story, it's all connected. So I consider it the same anime. So Yeah, but if I were to consider a different anime, I would put Boruto below Attack on Titan. But Naruto Shippuden and Part One will never be topped. It's the greatest anime of all time. Um, Berserk. I watched a little bit of Berserk, but I didn't watch that much of it. Uh, and this I don't know what anime that is. And then this is the original Hunter x Hunter, the 1999 version, I think. Um, I barely watched it. I watched a couple episodes of it, but I didn't watch much. So yeah, might as well just leave it off the list. And Yu-Gi-Oh! I watched a decent amount of it. Maybe about 2 or 3 episodes. I used to watch that back in my older days. Back in my younger days when I was, yeah, back when I was a lot younger. But yeah, it was pretty decent. I don't remember it being that good, honestly. But yeah, that's a tier list. Yep, that's a tier list. And with that being said, yeah, this let me know what you guys think of my tier list in the comment section below. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and clicking that channel notification bell to be notified of all my future videos. And click that like button to be if you like the video. And yeah, drop me a comment. Let me know what you thought of this video in the comment section below. And overall, yeah, this is the greatest. I think this is the greatest tier list of anime and the most accurate tier list. And with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.